Okay, guys, if you can hear me, if somebody's on, just let us know, either Facebook or YouTube. Oh. You can still hear me?
Yep.
Good. Okay, we'll just go with it. So, guys, welcome back to Middle American Outdoors Fireside Chats. It is episode 25. And Ben is caught up in the daylight savings conundrum of forgetting what time it is, so he'll be on eventually. And those that are on and letting us know you can hear it, thank you. We appreciate it. So we'll go ahead. I've got Amber here. As we talked about last week, and you probably saw on our Facebook page, we are honoring, what was it, Nebraska Outdoor Women's Month from Nebraska Game and Parks. And, we'd been talking to Amber anyway about coming on at some point, and it just worked out really well that it was timed with this celebratory month, I guess. So, with no further ado, here's Amber Dubs.
Hey, guys.
Yeah. What part of Nebraska are you from?
So I'm in the Panhandle, but right on the east end of the Panhandle, right in the Sandhills.
Okay. I didn't realize you were that far west to be in the different time zone.
Yeah, but that's all right.
Even
At least
more,
I didn't get messed up with the time change.
even more prime time Mule Deer country.
Yes.
Mule Deer
Yep.
and Merriam's, right?
Yes, and we never used to have turkeys, actually. The last, 3 years, they've really blown up, so I'm kind of excited to see what happens this year.
Yeah. Do you have any other game that makes its way out there? Do you see any antelope out there or anything?
We do have some antelope. I did get an archery tag this year, but I thought it was probably a long shot, but I figured I might as well try it. But I only really ended up going out one time, and I got within 100 yards, which is way too far for archery, but for stalking and crawling across the sandhills, I counted that as a win. I was happy with that. But
yeah, I would think even
I'll put in for a rifle tag this year, so we'll see.
That takes what, 3 or 4 points typically? I guess I don't know your unit specific, but
yeah, and it's different with landowner too.
Oh yeah.
But they changed that to a draw, at least here last year also.
But so hopefully not as many preference points to get there.
Yeah.
I know like the units I put in for are more in like the corner of the Panhandle, let's say like east of Banner County, that area that I'm more familiar with out west. And those are probably 3-4 years, they say. But we'll see. This will be year 4. So.
Yeah, I think my brother was 4 years to get one, but
yeah,
eventually.
Yeah. Do you ever see any elk?
No. There's some north of town actually, but I don't see any down here. A couple of years ago, a neighbor during calving said he saw a cow elk go through his herd. So I think it's a matter of time before we probably start seeing some. I keep saying one of these days we're just going to stumble upon an elk shed and be completely shocked. But
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Not unlikely.
I personally haven't seen any.
I mean, they've been as far east as where I'm at in Cumming County. There was some good elk tracks on some public land last year, and
nice.
I was in a tree stand. It was the place that I kayak into on public, and I was in the tree stand before dark, or way dark before it even started to get light at all. It was like 3:30 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning or something. And I told the game warden that something walked near my stand, and I turned my head to look, and it busted out of there, and it was so loud and heavy that I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That would have been something to have on film, an elk walking by.
No kidding.
But it was.
But you're right. When you're out there, you know the sounds and you know what's different.
Yeah,
so.
It was either a really clumsy big buck or I don't know. It sounded loud and heavy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ben's trying to jump in here. Let's see if we can do this flawlessly.
Hopefully I didn't mess it up.
I think you're good. Oh, I think maybe we lost Amber.
Oh, no.
Hold on, guys. We're going to get Amber back on since she's the star of the show here.
Yeah, I should have just stayed away.
No, you're good. While we're getting her back on, guys, if anybody has any questions or comments that they want to add, just go ahead and send them in. If it's for Ben or I, we'll obviously answer, but try to take advantage of having Amber on here and get some answers out of her, hopefully. Are you there, Amber?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
it
yeah.
cut out.
Yeah.
It said, okay.
Ben hung up on you.
I'm so sorry.
I'm here.
Wow. It says you're there, but is your screen on, Amber?
There we go.
There it is.
Okay.
Now we're rolling.
Now, yeah. Gotta love technology.
Amber, Ben. We are not going to leave this screen once it's up. There it is. We've got all three people on. Names match faces, and we're rolling.
Who could ask for more, right?
Yeah. So, Ben, we were just bragging about the variety of wild game that we have here in Nebraska, especially out where Amber is.
Sure. For sure. Absolutely.
I mean, you can boast about the giant whitetails everywhere, but once you start getting out in western Nebraska, the variety of game gets pretty awesome.
When I was younger, we lived up between Dunning and Halsey. My folks worked a turkey ranch up there years ago, and people would say, why in God's green earth would you want to live out here? I tell you what, once you get out there and start poking around, it's absolutely amazing. It's diversity
beautiful.
out there. It really is.
There. Yeah, I'm not too far from there.
Yeah,
you got to get out of the car and walk, but I tell you, it's absolutely beautiful out that way.
Yeah, anybody that says Nebraska is boring, I always say, well, did you get off the interstate?
Yeah,
you bet. Exactly.
Yep.
Well, I always joke about, I grew up in eastern Nebraska, and it's kind of like the you don't even know that anything exists past like Kearney, Grand Island.
Yeah.
Like you're just so
it's
naive to it.
Western Nebraska to a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's where it starts getting good.
Yeah, but when you're growing up on this side, it's kind of like Kearney and then Colorado. Like you don't realize that's out there. And yeah,
it's true.
Megan and I were fortunate enough to live out in Scottsbluff and Gering for 3 or 4 years after college, and had our eyes open to what we've been missing out on big time.
I love western Nebraska because from like the Wildcats and the Sandhills and the Pine Ridge area, like it's so different. You feel like you're traveling so far and it's only a couple hours apart,
We loved living in Scottsbluff because it was 3 hours to anywhere. That was 3 hours to the Black Hills, 3 hours to like Laramie area, and 3 hours down to like Estes Park, Fort Collins area.
Yeah.
And then 3 hours back to the middle of Nebraska.
Yeah.
But no, it's beautiful out there. If you go, like she's saying, the Wildcat Hill area in Scottsbluff County, and then you go north to like Fort Robinson and Toadstool Park, and Shadron is just unbelievable. You don't even have to get into South Dakota to be wowed. And then it takes a special person to really like the Sandhills area, but if you're into that in Mule Deer and Spot and Stock and like you're saying, Pine Ridge area for pheasant hunting by like Gordon and Rushville is insane.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is I went to school out in Goodland, Kansas, and it is literally flat out there. Like it is so flat. But even in Kansas, it's real similar in the fact you got a lot of diversity. If you just get off the interstate and just go, an hour one way or the other, and it's totally different. You know, a lot of these Midwestern states are like that. If you get out there and look around, there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you just get out of the car too, obviously getting off the interstate helps, but once you actually get out in some of those hills and buttes and you get up there, you can't believe the view until you get up there, you know.
For sure.
I will say, if you're going to drive the back highways across northern Nebraska, east to west, make sure you got gas. 'Cause it's like, oh my goodness. I think when we were driving out there for job interviews from Norfolk to Scottsbluff, the first time we kind of rolled into Alliance on fumes. Because I think it's like Hyannis or something like that. They have a little gas station there, and it's like, that's it, son.
That's where I'm from, actually, yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you know the Simpsons?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's my ex's family.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Small world. I was talking to Amber about. I actually worked at the hospital in Scottsbluff with your cousin.
Mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's like a
distant
cousin, but yeah.
A-dubs.
And my mom used to work there years ago too. So.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
And went to nurse practitioner school with your cousin as well, which is
Yep.
small world, small Nebraska.
It is. It is.
But let's jump into the topics. So real quick though, Ben, you want to tell us what you've been up to? Send you some well wishes.
I'm nursing a broken rib.
Yeah.
I'm crying like a little sissy. I tell you, it slowed me down, man.
Yeah.
I'm miserable.
What were you doing?
Oh, working on a boat trailer.
And fell off or through or?
Fell on it. Got my feet tangled up, and my momentum was already going over, and just had to take it.
You were already sore from cleaning out all the trees and stuff anyways, right?
Yep. I was actually taking it kind of easy, and I just stepped wrong and busted me up pretty good. But I'll survive.
Yeah, that's rough. Better now than November.
Oh, we got that hog hunt coming up here in a couple of weeks. The drive is what's going to get me.
Oh yeah.
But
you'll be good by then.
Hopefully I'm feeling better by then.
So I'm looking at questions on here. Becky, I do see your question, and that is going to be asked. I will certainly get to that. I've got it written down. But let's just start off. Amber, you just want to kind of tell us a little bit about your hunting background?
Yeah, so we didn't grow up necessarily in a huge hunting family. My brother got really into hunting, and we always had cousins and family friends coming out, so rifle deer season was a pretty big deal, but I personally never got that into it. And then as unreal as it is now, I actually went through a stage where I wanted absolutely nothing to do with hunting, which now my complete 24/7 world revolves around hunting. So I don't know how that happened, but I'm kind of glad it did, because I can at least relate to someone. But I didn't want to see any of the deer that they shot or anything. And then I think I was 22 or so, I finally decided I would go with my brother because I just wanted to spend time with him. And we had an awesome stalk. Like, it was on some of the biggest hills out here, and it was so cool. And I think I just kind of got addicted right away. Like, okay, this is way more than just killing, which I think is a big problem for a lot of people that don't understand hunting. But I saw how much went into that and how much he cared about it and what a reward it was. So I got up the nerve to take a hunter safety as I was like 23, and I was the only adult in the class that wasn't there with the kid. Kind of humbling experience, but so I did that, and then I started rifle hunting. It just kind of slowly developed into more of a passion. Like every year built on something, and every year we had so many stories and so much background and we're lucky to have private ground, I know, but every pasture held a certain deer's name, or we were like, oh, do you remember when this deer popped out of this ditch? Or like, it meant so much to build those memories and learn the land. I'd like to now branch out a little bit and sometimes go somewhere new, but learning the land, knowing the land, and that strategy is a huge part of it to me. And I thank my brother for teaching me that, for sure. But yeah, so I went, probably 5 years or so rifle hunting with my brother, and one year he got sick, really sick, and ended up in the hospital actually at the second weekend of rifle season. And at the time I thought it was horrible, and it was for him, but I said, I don't even want to hunt if I can't share it with him. Like, it was such a bonding experience. But I changed my mindset, and I was like, no, I'm going to redeem the season, and I'm going to go do it. And I worked my butt off that last day. Like, I didn't stop. It was just like, nose to the ground, I'm going to go get something. And I ended up getting a pretty nice deer that year. And I think that kind of started a new phase for me, because I love sharing it with other people, and that is a big part of hunting. But to know that I could do it on my own and make decisions, and like I alone was responsible for those decisions, even if they were wrong, it was okay. Like, because at least I know I'm knowing enough to make the choice. So I think that kind of was the beginning of the archery spur, because I liked the challenge of it, and I ended up, just as luck would have it, a couple years getting bucks on my own after he had left or something. And then I got into archery, and then that obsession just completely took over.
We all know that feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Never go back.
Yeah. You hit a good point there. I love the thing I love about mule deer hunting out there in western Nebraska is you'll get as many opportunities as you're willing to work for, really.
Yes,
Whitetail can be very frustrating. We've talked a lot about it before. Like, there might be 1 or 2 quality bucks in, like, where I'm at compared to where Ben's at's different, but 1 or 2 quality bucks in, like, maybe 8 square miles or something. And to try to get one of those guys to walk within 20 to 30 yards of your tree stand is a challenge. Like, there's just a whole different element to it. And I think my videos last year showed it, that sometimes you can do everything right and the buck just gets lucky. I mean, I had the one walking right down the trail upwind of me, and for some reason he just decided to check up and turn back. He had no idea I was there. Like, his instinct just told him to turn back or something, and it's over at that point. I can't get down and go chase him or try to get in front of him or outwork him or anything like that compared to, I just love mule deers, getting up super early, getting to a glassing point and just watching the nature come to life basically.
Yeah.
And if you bump them and you screw it up, keep your eyes on them. You know,
Yeah.
get high, keep your eyes on them, and figure out another way to get to them.
Yeah, that's where a ton of those mistakes end up being valuable lessons, you know, because I mean, just thinking about when you're going to be skyline, where the wind might swirl. I mean, I've bumped plenty of deer because I got lazy and stopped paying attention to what I was doing, or like I gave up and said, oh, there's no more here, so I'm just walking loudly, not paying attention, and then you spook something. So yeah, there's always, you never give up or count anything out.
Yeah.
And then if it's during the rut, you never know what might come hauling in, you know.
I think that's a really good point to hit on there, is the fact that making mistakes and then just, you know, instead of getting beat down by it and wanting to give up, is take what you messed up on and apply that to the next stalk or, you know, the next hunt or whatever.
Yeah. My jumping ahead a bit, but my archery deer from this year was only my second archery deer ever. This was like the first full year of archery that I really, really put in dedication to learning and put more time into it, into improving myself. But that buck, I watched him for a while, trying to decide if I actually wanted to hunt him or not. And I finally decided I did, and he was up on the side of a hill. And I don't know how much time I took, quite a while, just sitting at the base of the hill glassing, and like I memorized the whole landscape of the side of that hill because I knew once I got up there I would be right on them. And if I hadn't bumped so many deer and if I didn't know how touchy it could be at certain moments, there's no way I would have known to pay attention for that. So I'm pretty, I credit every failed everything that I've ever failed at kind of to that, because there's like 3 ditches going up there and a couple trees, and I just paid attention to where everything was. Hi.
Yeah. This is Joanna. She wanted to say hi. We told her
How are
there's
you?
a female hunter on. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Do you like
What you
hunting?
got?
I step rats.
Did you go shed hunting?
No.
No?
We do.
Did we kill any deer this year?
No, we didn't.
What?
That he missed. We didn't see any deers.
Yeah, we did. We missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Just
going to bed?
forget about it if you miss it.
I kept playing.
You gonna grow up to be a hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good night.
Good call.
Good night.
Miss Raptors.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, cummies.
What?
Mhm.
What did you say?
Bye, cummies.
Don't know.
How many watching?
She's been watching upstairs.
Aw. It's
Yeah.
fun.
I told you she got the chance to meet. I mentioned it last week, and I think I said Megan's name instead, but Joanna got the chance to meet Melissa Bachman at the Nebraska Deer and Game Expo, and she'll never
That's awesome.
remember, but I'll remember.
Someday
Car-
she will know, though.
Carly
She'll look
still
back
talks
at-
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think stuff we'll get into more with Amber here, but it's really cool for, you know, I mean, it's one thing for Joanna to grow up seeing her dad hunt. It's another thing for Joanna to get to see other females hunt, in contradiction to the popular view of females hunting. Yeah, that's definitely something we're going to get into because I know Amber's pretty passionate about that topic. Let me thumb through some of these questions here. I don't know if I can actually get these to come on. Let's just see if it works. Oh, it's right there. Nice. So Chase Udemark on Facebook says, have you guys been finding any sheds? I think Ben and I talked plenty on the other episodes about it, but what's it been like for you, Amber?
I found some really early on, like clear in the beginning of January, 2 fresh whitetail in a set, but I've kind of hit a wall lately. But then the weather doesn't help any. So my mom found a set, a pretty nice muley set. My dad found one, and I found a set 2 weekends ago, but they were from the year before, and then one fresh one. So it's been a little slow, but I am a crazy shed hunter, and I'm itching to get back out there. So we have a pretty good competition with our family too. So typically we have around Easter, we always say we go Easter shed hunting. So we'll all get out here eventually.
There's a little more delay now. You guys got caught up in that, not in the worst part of the snowstorm, but got caught up in the snowstorm this weekend. Yeah. It's super.
It's supposed to be really nice all week though, so it's actually snowing again now, but I think once that clears off, it should melt fast. So I think we're going back out this weekend.
It's the beauty of Nebraska, like 70 degrees and then 12 inches of snow and then 70 degrees in 24 hours.
Yes.
But
it makes it a mess, but
yeah,
it's all right for shed hunting.
Yeah. Let's see. There was a couple other really good questions. I'll pull this one in and see if it works. If we can read it. Diana French, I'm assuming related to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's big sister-in-law's mom.
Awesome. She is on. Yeah, she's on Facebook, and she said, Amber, I saw the bald eagle capture video. Bless you for trying to save them. But I want to know first, how did you discover them and know it was needing help? Second, were you scared to death to approach it? You look so calm and fearless. If you guys haven't seen it, I know you shared it on Instagram. You can go back and watch that. But you can tell us the story.
Yeah, so the reason that we discovered it, the neighbor had a friend out. I'm not sure if they were hunting or what they were doing, but they knew that I was super into wildlife and nature, so they contacted me and said that there was a bald eagle out there that looked hurt. And no, I had absolutely no idea what to do, but I'm like, if there's something out there that's hurt, obviously I'm gonna go check it out. So my mom and I drove over there, and we found an eagle. It was just sitting on the ground. You could tell it was so out of it. His head was kind of bobbing. So I was a little nervous to approach it, and I didn't think I was going to capture it really, but by the time we saw how bad of shape it was in, I was crying, because they're just such a majestic bird, and I just took my coat off and just walked up to it and put it over it, and unfortunately it was so sick that it didn't really fight or anything. And then I contacted the Game and Parks, and they put me in contact with a lady from Rapture Recovery, and I met her in town, and they tried to treat it, but he didn't make it. And then the next day, she said the mate is probably sick too, so we went out to try to capture the mate. The next day, she was noticeably sick, but she was still well enough to fly, so we couldn't get her. And then my mom went out on the next day and captured her, but she didn't make it. She passed away by the time they got to the house. So, but the interesting story and learning lesson on that is it was lead poisoning, which I'm happy to talk about it, because we want to help educate people on that. We never knew anything about that, but like a teeny tiny size of lead, like from a bullet or shotgun, I think it's the size of piece of rice, maybe. I could be wrong, but is enough to kill a bald eagle. So they eat the remains of something that had been shot. They get sick. They can treat them if you catch them soon enough, but again, if they're still well enough, they you know, you can't catch them if they're sick enough. So it was a learning lesson, and I had shot a porcupine not too long before that, and my parents had shot a porcupine not too long before that. So we wonder, you know, did they eat the remains from that and get it? You never know, but we will be way more conscious about it now. So
that's really interesting, because obviously everybody uses lead for upland bird, and
yeah. And I have a friend that used to work at Crescent Lake Wildlife Refuge, and I guess they only allow non-lead ammo there, probably for that purpose. But
yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable on it, but I know, like, from waterfowling in western Nebraska, you had to use steel shot for waterfowling, so I guess I don't know why that's different. If somebody knows for sure, they can chime in. But
from what I was told was, you know, you do get a lot of cripples when shooting waterfowl, and you're also shooting over water, so the ducks will go down and eat the lead that, you know, it gets down in the mud and whatever. And the lead actually kills more ducks than get shot with it, is what I was told. So,
I didn't know
that's why they did away with it. And then a lot of WMAs that have waterfowl on it, like if you want to go in and hunt pheasants, you have to use non-toxic shot to hunt on those areas as well.
Interesting.
That's why I prefer to hunt with carbon fiber.
Yes. So I said I'd just stick to my bow now.
Carbon fiber and A2 steel. Let's see. I'm still going to get to Becky's question here in a minute, but let's see. You want to tell us just one of your favorite hunting stories? I know you've had quite a bit of success, and I didn't get the pictures loaded up to be able to show them here, but I will share probably tomorrow. I'll try to share your collection of pictures on our page so people can see to go with your stories.
Okay. That's tough to pick a favorite. I think this year, it wasn't the buck that I ended up getting, but which was an awesome. I should finish that story. I just paying attention to the landscape of where that buck was. I kind of counted how many ditches and cattle trails and trees over he was, so that when I got halfway up the hill, I could stop and figure out where I was. Because again, I've gotten, no matter how well you think you know where you're at, you get up there and you get excited, and you're such in close quarters that you get a little lost. So I finally got up to the ditch, and I knew I was going to be right behind him. And he was a 5 does too, which is another, I mean, that's another way I'm thankful that I've messed up, because you have to pay attention to where all the eyes are. Don't get stuck on the buck. And you never know if they're going to get up. Sometimes, you know, they're not necessarily spooked yet, but they just get up and walk to the side. And you don't know they've walked to the side, and it wouldn't have been a messed up hunt, except for that you weren't paying attention. So, I can't say enough how much my brother really ingrained it into my head that you just have to move slow and quietly. Again, even if you don't think you need to at the time, just always. But so I get up to this ditch, and it was a tall enough ditch that I was standing actually and looking over, and I could see the buck's antlers barely right there, which I credit that to my brother too, because he always taught me, like, to get your binoculars out and look for the tips of the antlers, because a lot of times by the time you see more of the deer, they see you too. So I've kind of trained my eye to just look for those tips. So I saw him. He was probably only 10 yards at the time, bedded down, and I knew the does were closer. So, like, I'm standing on this ditch, and I know the doe was like right on the other side. But I'm like, okay, don't, just take your time. They're not going anywhere. So I sat there for a bit, got my mindset right, and then I decided I would just kind of push up over. I could have waited. I should have probably waited a little bit longer, but patience is not my virtue. So I decided I just kind of, he was bedded down. I decided I wanted to just push him a little bit because he was close enough. I was banking, and a muley. I was banking on the fact that if he got up, he would just get kind of nervous and wouldn't go too far. I just kind of created a little bit of movement just to make him nervous, but I wasn't like popping up out of there. And it worked perfectly. He just jumped up and stood on top of the hill at 40 yards, and I drew back and took a shot, and he went down over the hill, of course. And I know you need to give them time, but I was lacking confidence in myself, and when my mind got the best of me, I'm like, oh man, I think I just made a bad shot. I shouldn't have done that. And those does were standing up right in front of me, but they wouldn't leave. So I like just sat back down. I texted my brother, and I was like, I just made a bad shot. He's like, well, go get him. And so I'm sitting there waiting for the does to leave, trying to psych myself up. I'm like, you're going to spend the rest of the day going after this buck and trying to recover a wounded buck and trying to get a second shot and trying to find him. And I felt so bad. And finally those does cleared away. I also, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if the does aren't leaving, maybe he didn't go very far. But I was like, yeah, that's wishful thinking, you know. So they finally kind of bumped down the hill, and I creep up over the hill, and I'm blasting the ditch where I think a wounded deer would go. And I look down, and he just nosedived and flat out dead, right 50 yards at the bottom of the hill. And I can't even describe that feeling, you know, because it was I psyched myself out so bad, and just to see, much less that it was that clean and that fast of a kill, I couldn't believe it. I just sat down and stared for a while. I just couldn't believe it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, anybody that's been hunting can probably, especially I'm partial to bow hunting, but anybody that's been hunting at all can probably understand exactly what you're describing there. There's so much to unpack in that too, with like the great knowledge that you got, passively from your brother, passing it on, but also through the learning. We talk all the time about, that's what we're basically dedicated to, is the educational side. And you're looking at ways to learn. You can learn passively by taking in content and whatnot, learning through, like, say, our mistakes on our hunting videos that we try to be transparent about. But some of the best ways to learn is what you're saying, just being out there. Say you take that chance and he bumps and you don't get a shot, then you'll never forget that lesson. And how you were talking about muleys, I mean, we had that conversation that they can be just so different. They can also be really flighty and jumpy, depending on how much they've been pressured and educated. But by and large,
you can't count on them not busting, because we've had some bust for sure. But
you can't just recklessly run at them or ignore your wind, etc., etc. But you can get away with a lot more. They're much more curious than they are scared, I would say. Whitetail are just like Yeah, they're terrified. Like the perfect example, like okay, they watched your buck go down and they just stood there watching him, and
Yeah.
then same with my buck this year with the muzzle loader. Whenever I edit those videos, you guys will see the pack of does just kept looking at him, and deer kept coming back to check him out and to check me out in the tree. They just walk right up to me to see what I was that shot him. But then in Ben's son's video that we put out recently, he shot a doe, and all the rest of them were kind of going toward where he shot that doe, and then all of a sudden they just bust full speed, and I'm guessing, Ben, that's probably when she nosedived into the weeds. Like,
Oh, for sure.
because she only ran like 10 or 20 yards, and it looked like the timing was just that she was probably running. They were trotting the way she was going. She nosedived, and they just beeline the other way as fast as they could. They don't even know what happened. That's not usual. We're out of here.
Yeah.
Totally different deer. But let's see. We'll go ahead, Ben. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. So I've got a whole herd of kids, and 3 of them are girls. The older 2 never really got into hunting. They do like the outdoors. They like to shoot and fish and stuff like that, but hunting never really was their thing. And then we get to my youngest daughter, Carly, who is more deer crazy than I am.
Yeah.
So what do you have any suggestions if there's another parent that's in my position that has a child that shows an interest in the outdoors, specifically a young girl? I mean, times are different now than when I was younger, but there's still that stigma that girls shouldn't be out hunting and stuff like that. So I mean, she even hears it at school sometimes, because she talks about it literally all the time. As a parent, do you have any suggestions for a new upcoming young female hunter?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think you can get away from anyone else judging it. But I think, and I know you do a good job of this, if you instill the reason that you hunt and how important it is and how proud you are of it, and that it's awesome for her to be proud of it and just to own it. I mean, as a young girl, that's hard. It was hard for me, even older sometimes, because it just feels like that's not what you're supposed to be doing. But it's so empowering to learn. So I would just keep getting her out there. I don't know how old she is, but maybe even have her bring a friend along, because sometimes teaching someone and sharing that experience with someone else like builds the confidence and how important it is to you. So
Sure.
it would make her think, oh, I can do this. This is important. Someone else might appreciate this. So yeah, her bringing someone else along might, just kind of help build on that confidence too.
Absolutely.
And the more experiences, the better. And people like Melissa Bachman, like, get her on those awesome female hunters that you should look up to. Get her involved in that.
Absolutely.
Right on. That kind of answered. Becky French was on YouTube, and she asked, what would you say to young girls who are nervous about getting started in the hunting scene? Let's say that, you came from a hunting background, but let's say that you didn't, but as a late bloomer even, you wanted to get into it. What would be some advice? It doesn't even have to be like a female only perspective, just as a late bloomer, period.
I would say get a bit educated, although you dive in and it gets really overwhelming thinking that you have to know everything immediately, and that takes away from it a little bit. When I got into archery, I'm like embarrassed now at what I didn't know about it or how in depth it was. But I'm kind of glad that I got that first year under my belt without knowing all of that, because I didn't have to try to have the best rest and figure out what was the best release and do what everyone else is doing. And it gets so overwhelming, I think, that you just don't try, and you see how successful other people are and you just kind of give up. So I would say get the basics, find somebody that can mentor you a little bit. If you can't, there's great people on YouTube and social media, of course, but just kind of get the basics and get out there and get a feel for it. Like, don't be intimidated by what you don't know, and don't feel like you have to go crazy and get all the best of everything right away, because that is too overwhelming. Like, I'm really passionate about doing the best that you can, but if it's rifle, I still don't take long shots. I mean, go out and at least get yourself out there. If you're only going to take 100-yard shot, fine, go out there and see if you can't make it happen. Archery, if you're going to go out and you're only going to take a 20-yard shot, fine, just go, see what you can do and build on it. And again, the experiences and the lessons that you gain in between, just build. But I saw a quote actually recently, wasn't about hunting, but it said something like, you're not afraid to start, you're just afraid to start small. And I thought that was so good for so many things, but definitely with hunting.
Yeah. Archery specific, there are times where I wish I could go back to ignorance, like
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, I haven't been in archery that long. I want to say 6 years maybe. And I used to buy Easton Bloodline or Bloodsport or something like that. Already fletched, like three straight fletch blazers, and tried to get the right spine, but that was about all I knew about it. And it was so simple compared to once you start really getting into the minutia of bow tuning and arrow tuning, and oh my God. But the key is that you don't have to be able to do that to start. And if you aren't that into it, I don't want to say that these guys don't know, but if you ever watch the hunting public, phenomenal hunters, they take their bows to the bow shop and they let those guys do it for them. Like, I don't know that means that they don't know all the bow tuning and all that stuff, or it just means one, they have a really great bow shop to go to. And maybe they're just not interested in it, but you don't have to have a bow shop in your basement to do it. Like, that's my choice on how I go about hunting and archery. But you don't have to be able to do all that stuff in order to do it. And that also applies to hunting, just getting out there. And we always joke and you can't kill them from the couch. People say that all the time. If you're completely ignorant and, completely new, complete rookie, completely green, you don't know nothing, and you just start getting out there and learning lessons through mistakes, you can still get lucky. That first buck I killed 3 years ago, so that I kayaked in, there's a good amount of luck in that. I thought at that time I knew quite a bit. Fast forward 3 years and I realized I didn't know quite a bit. I know quite a bit now. That was probably only my second year hunting whitetail, tree stand style, but I was willing to work and learn in the process, and I just was blessed with the opportunity to kill a buck on public ground. But you don't have to know everything about a whitetail to kill one. You can get borderline lucky and use the little bit of knowledge that you do have, etc., and learn as you go. This was a successful year for me, but this is year 8, I think, of hunting and progressively learning more and more and more. And this was the first time I felt on both of those kills, it was because I knew what to do in that situation, through previous learning, etc. But we all go through it. That's the key. And like you said, if you can get a mentor in person, I had a buddy in Scotts Bluff that we had Tyler, my brother, on here the other day, and he's interested in hunting and archery. Like, he shoots his bow. He just hasn't taken that first step toward hunting. And it's such a hard first step, especially the older you get. And I was blessed out west that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I thought of something else that would be good for any age range, which I'm super into photography, which not everybody would be. But when I first, those first few times I actually did go hunting and enjoyed the stalk, I would go out with my camera year round and just stalk the deer to see how close I could get with my camera. And that probably built a lot of the skill and a lot of the passion too. So, I mean, that's another thing, getting women outdoors, or anybody outdoors, doesn't have to be hunting, but the challenge of getting close to the animal and there's is huge. So that would be another tip, maybe.
And that's kind of how I got Carly's passion really fired up, was the little things like shed hunting, going out and hanging stands. When we go plant a food plot, I explain what it is we're planting, why they like it, why we planted this type of thing. Just looking at tracks and finding bedding areas, and there's such a broad spectrum to what hunting really is, that you don't actually have to go out and kill an animal to be hunting.
Yeah.
And like for us, it's year round. And like you said, grab a camera and just go take pictures of them. You're still hunting. You're just not bringing the animal home with you. It's a lot of fun.
Your home range deer probably got used to you, and they're like, "Oh, that's just that girl that takes pictures." And then, bam.
I just walk out in hot pink, and
they're like, "Yeah, she's just got that's that smell of that person that's just got the camera. She'll leave soon."
Yep.
That's awesome. So we've got about, let's say, 10 minutes left. Let's get into this topic that you brought up that I know you're passionate about, and I think is a really awesome thing to hammer home. The word you used, and I would agree with, was this concept of the huntress, and what you think of it and how it affects, hunting for females getting into hunting. Obviously, this, like we talked about, this is Nebraska Game and Parks, Nebraska Outdoor Women's Month. And part of the R3 committee, they're always trying to figure out how to get more people in and retained and staying and hunting. And I believe that this would be a really good topic to hammer home as far as the female hunter's perspective.
Yeah. So the term huntress, I mean, it's been around forever, and it was just a female hunter. And I didn't really think that much of it because I don't get that much into social media really, or get too deep in it. But it's turned into this crazy social media commercialized, like sexualized view of women and hunting. And I think that turns off so many people. And there's a lot of good with social media, and I'm not a believer in like talking about the bad. I think you should focus on the good. So I don't want to talk about it and give it more attention. However, I think women looking at maybe wanting to get involved at hunting, if that's what they see, they are so turned off by it, and it's so disrespectful to the animal and what hunting actually is, that I mean, I wouldn't want to be involved in it either. Now, obviously, I have a different background than that, but if you think about an anti-hunter, and if that's the picture that they're getting, that's not what we want to put out there. And with somebody new too, I told Matt the other day, I feel like with women, there's like one end of the spectrum where you have the picture of a female hunter that has to be there holding a gun in a bikini, or holding her fish up in a bikini, or making some stupid sexual pose. So there's that end, which you don't really want to be involved in. And then there are amazing female hunters, which I give a ton of credit to, but that are, backpacking an elk out, and you get stuck. There's not a lot of middle ground, or women don't think that they fit in if they can't do the one end and they don't want to be on the other end. They feel like they don't fit in, and that's so wrong. And I think, and men probably maybe a bit on that too, but I think as a hunter, it's your job to think about what you're putting out as the face of hunting. Like, it should be humble, grounded, natural, real. Not everybody is gonna get as passionate and crazy maybe as we do, but the basics, like, keep the main thing, like I said, and don't get caught up on all of this. And a lot of it is just companies taking advantage of selling a product. So I saw an ad today, actually. I don't remember what it was for, but it was ironic because I wasn't even thinking about this conversation at the time, but it was some sort of hunting product. And the woman was completely clothed in full camo with a bow. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, someone that actually looks like a hunter should look like. And that's kind of sad that that's the abnormal view sometimes. So, and as a young girl getting into it, again, there's plenty of good female models out there. Just know that you can be a hunter, or if you want to call yourself a huntress, that's fine, but not the new age social media version of it. You don't have to sell yourself out. You don't have to be like that, and don't get a bad taste in your mouth about hunting, because that's what we see a lot.
Yeah, it's we were talking, me and Amber, that it's so crazy because on the men's spectrum, it's like the opposite. The more average you are, the more the more acceptable it is. Yeah, I feel like the people that are like the outliers, like the crazy bow nerds, or the first person that always comes to mind is Cam Hanes. Like, you don't have to be able to run a marathon to kill an elk. Like, he's ridiculed because he's an outlier. And in the hunting, on the opposite spectrum, on the women's side, it's like that is the picture of what is acceptable, and the average is not displayable. The clickbait thing on YouTube is probably the worst. Yeah, it's awful. It was really. Go ahead.
Something you mentioned the other day too was, you said it's almost frowned upon for a man to try to get fit or try to go above the basic. Like, just do the minimum amount of work that you can do to.
It's almost more glorified to be like, maybe oversimplifying it here. But it's almost more glorified to be like, look how out of shape I am and how little I actually had to do to kill this deer because I'm so skilled. And then if you are on the the wild other end of the spectrum of that, people are much more likely to accept and glamorize the out of shape. My brain is more powerful than my body. Like, I didn't have to do all that stuff and I still killed this deer. That seems much more acceptable on the men's spectrum. In somebody like, I always say Cam Hanes, but that's just the most extreme example that's a public figure. You're absolutely right. You might not have to be able to run a marathon to kill that deer. We hammer all the time. It's 100% about what makes you the most confident in the woods, and that's what makes him most confident in the woods, and that's why he kills. and like if you don't have to do that to be confident in the woods, in something else you're still 100% confident, then that's going to be plenty. Gear, all that stuff, that all applies to that. It's just, it gets ugly when it's my way is the right way and the only way. And the stuff you're talking about really is frustrating. I have a couple females in mind, but for you, we're 100% with you. We don't like to glamorize the bad or put people down specifically. We say all the time, we're not going to build ourselves off of other people's back. So we don't need to go into specifics on what's upsetting, but we do like to noteworthy things. So who are some of the females that you would say are, that you look up to, or they don't even have to be, on the screen, but let's get a couple on the screen and a couple in your real life.
Melissa Bachman, as you mentioned, I think she is so real. I mean, she's skilled and she's amazing, but she is so real and down to earth. I don't know if it was you guys. I don't think it was a podcast from the Nebraska show. I can't. Somebody was talking about how they were talking to her and they didn't even have a clue who she was.
That was
that was me.
And that's awesome because she,
she's just touring our booth and asking us questions about filming gear.
Yeah. And it's not like she's walking around like, oh yeah, I'm one of the biggest people here. I'm gonna sit and have a conversation and let you talk. So, Brianna Carey, she's not as popular, but she just put out a women's fitness program with Mountain Ops.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to her on a podcast, and she is so down to earth. And she actually said something about the huntress thing. I can't remember what she said, but I think she's just down to earth. And then Tiffany Lakoski, she's famous, obviously, and I tend to be like, oh, I don't want the top famous people, I don't want to give them any more credit, but I think they are super, super, super down to earth. And I've heard them say too, you can kind of badmouth the sponsorship thing a little bit. Sometimes that gets carried away, but they say, like, we're going to use them and we're going to do what they want us to do because we appreciate them. It's not, I shouldn't say use them because I don't mean it like that. But,
use their product.
And they don't get super caught up in the social media. They keep some of it private, and then they'll post later on. And I just, no matter how famous they are, I think they're down to earth good people.
Yeah. So, I think you
and
nailed it.
And she gets it done and kills big bucks.
Yeah, I think so you nailed the two that I had in mind, and I want to cover real quickly some things that, like you were just saying. I don't know why, but so Melissa Bachman gets destroyed because she hunts outfitters, but she's wildly open about it. Who the heck cares? She still has the skill to pull off the shots. She still has the love of the outdoors. She's still a hell of a role model for any hunter, let alone our daughters or any females out there. Any hunter, male or female. Like when she came to our booth and she was talking, the first thing that Ben said was like, who is that? She's really knowledgeable. It's not a joke. She's not just showing up and somebody's holding her hand and putting her on an automatic gun. And she didn't start there. That's where she's at now because she's wildly famous and those people want her to come hunt their places, and she's now got those opportunities. People don't ridicule. I'm thinking like Buck Commander. Nobody ridicules Willie Robertson and Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean and those guys. They have private ground that's manicured and stuff, and they hunt a ton of outfitters. Nobody ridicules it. People love it. What's the difference? And it drives me crazy. And like you're saying, people like to ridicule Lee and Tiffany. like crazy. Part of it I think is like they're just so outside of the trend in the industry that it probably makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like Tiffany's gone through some crazy stuff in life just in the last 5 years,
Yes.
and like to get to know that stuff, and like, oh man, it's really cool. And yeah, they have a ton of sponsors, and yeah, they kill a lot of bucks, but they do the farming and they work the ground, and they, oh
Yeah.
man, it's just like, I don't understand why. Yeah.
And they always have their kids involved too.
They don't call it public land, you know, they don't try to sell that they're hunting on public land. Like, they're 100%, they hunt their farm. They moved to Iowa with the purpose of quitting their jobs, building a farm, and raising a deer herd which they can hunt, and they invest all of themselves into it. And some other companies really like what they're doing, so they offer them gear and money, and they use it.
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to, like you touched on earlier, is, and I don't understand why it's this way, but you know, we're kind of our own worst enemy, where if somebody does something different than the way we do it, then it's wrong. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you know, enjoy your hunt, no matter what it is, whether it's a camera or whatever, and just enjoy your time in the outdoors. And I don't know where we got away from that. You know, when I was younger, that's what it was all about, was spending time with your friends and family. And I think the commercialization of the outdoor industry is a big problem with that. And you know, leading right into the topic was, you know, the women being commercialized in hunting to sell product. And I see a trend getting away from that a little bit. You know, I think we're making the right moves as outdoors people to do that, but we got a long ways to go.
Yeah. And again, there's so much good stuff on social media, but I think that's part of it. Is a friend said to me the other day, something like, I see more hunting pictures posted to sell a certain kind of camo than the actual game. And it just, we get so caught up in having to get the perfect picture for social media. And I mean, I do it too, but I'm trying to share my experiences. I don't really care about the likes, but I don't know how you manage that, or how it got so far off that it takes away from that, you know.
This is a topic I would love to take on sometime so much on a separate show, because I like, as we're talking about it, I'm just thinking like, oh man, just the sponsors and partners that we have. I would say sometimes you feel pressured to produce content, and obviously we have quotas to meet on producing content with them tagged in it and showing their product, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that makes it easier for us is we never took product that we weren't using already. Most of the contacts and partnership sponsorships were gear that we already had, and more or less it was to have further relations down the road for different gear, etc. It wasn't, man, I need a tree arm, let's see which company will work with us and use their tree arm. It was, we really like our 4th arrow gear, let's see if we can work with these guys for the future. But that being said, I can see where, when that pressure's on you, that, oh man, I think hands down commercialization of hunting is killing it from the inside out. Obviously the media loves to run with when one of these celebrities breaks the rules. I think everybody's kind of following along right now with the Lacey Act that happened regionally, and the fight that's going on against the Lacey Act because of it. And man, it's hard to watch. I happen to be a really big fan of that hunting show, and then to find out that was going on, allegedly, probably more than allegedly, is just devastating. And to think like people of that high, what I thought was that high of character, can fall subject to that just because of the pressures of meeting the sponsor requirements. And you know, if you want to hold on to that big deal with Realtree, you better kill a 200-inch whitetail or it's gone, kind of thing. Like, I used to run like semi-professionally, and you felt that pressure. Like, you had to run so well, otherwise you weren't going to be doing it come January 1st the next year. It, like, I could see where they feel that they have to go to crazy levels to maintain that and to meet those things. And man, it sucks. I think we should just talk about commercialization of hunting, because you can get into like trophy hunting and what the definition of trophy hunting is, and why trophy hunting's not bad, but trophy hunting can be horrible for like the image of hunting, etc. But anyway, Ben, you got any closing questions for Amber? Anybody out there have any closing questions? We thank everybody that's been on this whole time.
No, I think I'm good.
Cool. You got any parting shots, Amber? Last hitters for everybody?
No, other than just get out in the outdoors. Again, with Women in the Outdoors Month, I'm crazy about hunting, but I'm crazy about the outdoors too. So even if I wasn't a hunter, I'd be out there every chance I could get. And there's a ton of ways that you can get involved in nature. And even if you're not the most outdoorsy person, I challenge you to get out there and see what you can get from it, because I bet you won't leave nature without taking something from it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
My own little slogan, I say, put some wild in your soul. So
yeah,
I'll
and
just get wild in my day, every day.
here in Nebraska, they have that slogan, take 'em hunting. So if you are the person like Amber that's out there, grab somebody that's not and take them with you, and see what they think of it. You know, you might spark an interest in them that they didn't know that existed deep down within, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, for everybody that's heard this or listening later, like I said, tomorrow I will share Amber's trophy pictures of some of the sweet deer that she's killed and turkeys, etc., that she did send me, and I wasn't able to get fired up for the live here, but we'll share those on our Facebook page and Instagram. And if you guys have questions later, I'm sure Amber will take questions on her social medias, or it's what, at dubs.amber. dubs.amber. Yep, on Instagram.
I'd be happy to send inspiration or motivation, because it fires me up as much as I like firing anybody else up. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then we're obviously always open to questions. We've got a variety of different hunters on our cruise here. With the lifelong hunters, the has 9 kid hunters, the late bloomer hunter. But anyway, thanks everybody that's been on. We will be on again next week. We are actually going to have Chris Edwards from here in Nebraska on. We are going to be talking about the Veterans Bow giveaway, announcing the winners of that, or the recipients of that, I should say. And then we're going to have Chris on, who is a Navy veteran, and we are going to be talking to him just about being involved in organizations in the state where you live, and even nationally, and how those things play a big role, as Chris is heavily involved in like anything and everything that has initials in Nebraska related to wildlife. He's involved. But so we'll have him on, and then we'll see after that. I think we're still trying to get Christine on, hopefully the last week here in March, to talk about her professional kayak fishing life. But cool. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for being